As is tradition, once again, we're making a tier list of the Gwent Balance Council changes. This will be for the August Council, and I think we're going to have some strong feelings on this one based on what I saw so far. But let's get into it. So once again, for the tiers, we have top tier. These are really great changes, things I think might like fix a deck, make a deck viable. Good changes are just overall good. Neutral changes, I don't care one way or the other for a variety of reasons. Questionable changes, I am dubious are good, but I'm willing to try them out. It might be okay, it might not, we'll see. Bad changes, I'm pretty sure are bad and I really don't like. And I hate this, is for, well, usually this is for Nausicaa Sergeant and things that constantly get changed back and forth. So it's getting constantly changed back and forth. It's going to fall down here. Doesn't mean I hate the idea of what's being changed, I just know it doesn't mean anything because it's going to keep getting changed. Now on to the changes themselves. Let's just go in order. So we'll start off with provision nerfs. These things gained a provision. And right off the bat, we'll do two that aren't actually nerfs. We'll start with Firesworn. I think this is good. I think Firesworn's the worst of the Syndicate leaders, has like the least uses, and Firesworn's just pretty easily punished, so giving another provision, maybe fit in more neutral cards that can help it meet its deal with its weaknesses might be helpful. I think this is probably a good idea. This is what I wanted to do instead of nerfing the other Syndicate decks, was give some options. Then we have the other one is Enslave. Questionable. Enslave's really strong leader. I don't know if this needs to be a 15 again, but I don't care that much, but just questionable. Next up, we have Akaranchi. Akaranchi probably deserves to be 13 provisions, if we're being honest. She is a very, very good card and can do a ton of great stuff. And at 12, she was really cheap, especially considering she gives you 6 coins. So this one's fair. Probably good. Then we have, next up, is King Foltest. Same thing as Akaranchi. He was 11. That's really cheap for what he does. He makes several decks function. And, well, we'll talk about those later. But I think overall, just the King Foltest nerf is a good one. Then we have Conjurer's Candle. I guess this is fine. If Syndicate's too strong, you can always nerf Candle, I suppose, because it's in all the Syndicate decks, because it gives you a fee carryover. And it's just pretty strong, in general protects your engines. I liked it getting its buff, but I guess it has to get nerfed again, because Syndicate was too strong. I guess. They have Open Sesame. Where is Open Sesame? This is a terrible change. Open Sesame is 6, completely destroys Vice. Can't make it off Shady Vendor, the deck's completely dead. I would much rather have seen changes to Candle and Akaranchi. This is already 2 provisions hit to the deck. We do not need to give it 4 provisions hit to the deck by doing this. This was probably fine, honestly. I think this is a really bad change. It really hurts. We've seen this before. When you put this at 6, the Vice decks are unplayable. Next up, we have Teleportation. So this one is one, I'll be honest here, I don't get Teleportation. I don't like it. It's been changed before. If it gets changed one more time, it's going in the I hate this tier. But I don't understand why this has to be a 5. It plays for basically no tempo, except for whatever your deployability gives you, which is not usually worth 5 provisions. So I don't know this is 5. Is this just because it was played in the Blue Stripes deck is my guess. It was played in Blue Stripes to make additional copies of the Scout or something. And then I guess also Mill plays it, I guess, in some of the Nilfgaard nowadays more Mimi decks with the Raw Tossers did. But I don't like this change, especially if it's to address Blue Stripes, which we'll get to in a minute. Kid Wendy Revenant, on the other hand, probably is a fair change. I think this is actually a really good change. I don't like the idea of nerfing Revenant because Revenant didn't see play and then got buffed. But I do like about this is it really incentivizes the other ways to make Revenants that's not just play like 2 Revenants in your Siege deck or whatever. Now it really benefits things like Forbidden Magic, because Forbidden Magic just a 2 damage, you're getting a 5 version spawn off of it instead of a 4 version spawn. So it gives that more value, and Draw gets more value if it's harder just to play 1 or 2 of these in your deck. And it was, I think, probably a bit too strong. I wouldn't like, it's fine. I think it's probably good overall. We'll just go with that. And then next up we have Griffin Witcher Adept. This one is excellent. Put this one top tier. So Griffin Witcher Adept was supposed to go to 5/5, but you can't do that in one patch. So it went 5 power and then 5 provisions. This was attempted before, where it went 5 power and 4 provisions. It got nerfed and reverted. That reversion was really stupid, and it just completely ruined the point of this, trying to make this deck viable. At 5 for 5, I think it's fair. It makes a deck, you can do stuff with it in Golden Neck, or you can do stuff with it in just Witchers. Northern Realms Witchers really need to have this to be playable, so I think I like this change. Well, I know I like this change. I think it's really good. Then we have the Eternal Eclipse Initiate. I, for the life of me, don't understand this. Eternal Eclipse is a meme deck. It's more popular now. I've seen a good amount of 2 scenario ones, but I don't think this really warrants a provision nerf to the deck. I don't know. I just don't see it. I just don't think cultists are that strong, but maybe that's just me. Maybe there are people out there just getting rolled by cultists. I don't get it. I think this doesn't make sense to me. Let's move on to the provision decreases. So these are the buffs. We'll start off right away with one I do actually quite like. Where is Yalmar Seawolf? I will put this in top tier. Yeah, I think this is a top tier change. Yalmar Seawolf is really interesting because you can make a deck based around getting armor, and then he transfers that armor to points when you play a raid. So I think it's a really cool card. Just 14 was way too expensive for what he did. Now I really hope we can make a deck with him, and I really just like that change. I hope we can make something work with him. Next up, we have Regus Reborn going to 12. I'm neutral on this. I would have much rather seen other vampire cards get buffed than Regus Reborn. I feel like this is the Fallen Knight scenario, where instead of buffing the other cards that aren't played, we just buff the best card in the deck to try and make the deck viable, which I don't like as an approach. And Regus Reborn, I particularly don't like as an approach because it really helps the Renfree versions, because they just use those provisions for whenever Renfree and stuff gets nerfed. However, it does help every vampire deck, so that's okay. It's just, I really wish it did something other than incentivizing the Renfree version more. I wish there was a change that would make Devotion vampires more incentivized, for example, or like a change to like, you can't change Feast for Blood, but like some kind of neutrals that fit in the deck really well, because we did nerf Operator, which we'll get to later. But yeah, not sure I like this one, but we'll see. It does help all the vampire decks, to be fair. Next up, we have Monroe. I think this is good. Monroe's a really good card when it's going, but it's also really expensive to include. When it doesn't get going, it costs you a lot. So I think this is fine. I really have been meaning to play Dwarves, so we definitely try it out with this buff and another one we'll get to. So Dwarves getting some love here. Really glad to see that. And I hope this isn't, I don't think this will be too much of a problem. Next up, we have Alzur. Alzur decks are really cool. Alzur is a really neat card. You can make different decks with them that you can't make otherwise with the spells, which I really like. And if you can't do stuff really with Kira, you can kind of do stuff with Alzur. Usually you just use him with the Orb of Insight, but you can do other things with him. I think this is a really cool one. Really want to try this guy out. His effect does read very scary, but the decks you make with him usually aren't that imposing, so making him cheaper I think is probably fine. Then we have Coup de Grace. I'm neutral on Coup. Going to 9, like Enslave got a buff, got a provision buff already. We have Coup. It fits into Golden Necker now. Golden Necker Mill likes this on Contra when it's in, if it goes to 9, I'm guessing. I guess I'll just go in a bunch of other decks. And I don't know, Coup is a very useful card a lot of the time. A lot of the time it plays for good value, so I'm not too sure about this one. That's why I'm putting it in neutral. But then again, I never thought it was like too strong, so I don't know. This one's kind of weird. I feel like it might get too much value, but I'm not too sure because I don't usually play a lot of Nilfgaard. Next up, we have Water of Brokilon. This is also a top tier change. The water change shouldn't have been reverted last patch. The Dried Fledgling and the Saskia one, yeah, they should have been reverted. Those were too much at once, but I think just the water one's fine. You have deck building options that you can make with Golden Necker in particular. Golden Necker Harmony, you can make stuff. It just buffs Harmony because Harmony, after Harmony's buffs got reverted, I didn't see a single person play it because it's not very good. So hopefully this helps it out a bit. I like this change quite a bit. Speaking of things I like quite a bit, we'll also throw Ceres, Fearless in top tier. I'm not sure this alone makes a new deck because it's hard for Ceres to make a new deck, but there's a lot of things you can do with Ceres that are quite cool. And I wonder if you maybe fit something like this in a Lippy deck, Lippy Self Wound, maybe something interesting there. There's a Melusine Self Wound. I just think there's a lot of options for Ceres, and it also helps the Drummond, Queen's Guard, all that stuff. So I really like this one. Do a quick one here. Menno, it's probably good since all the tutor cards get buffed in provisions. I didn't like the idea of all the tutor cards getting buffed in provisions, but if they're all getting buffed, then Menno gets buffed too, I guess. So that is what it is. Bountiful Harvest. I'm questionable on this one. We've had Bountiful Harvest at 5 before, and it's extremely good. But maybe this... The thing at 5 is it competes with Backup Plan for just putting Simloss plus 2 specials in any random Scoia'tael deck. This does also help Harmony, I think. But I don't know if this is actually a good idea or not. But it also makes it mandatory, I think, in like Symbiosis, because now it's at 5. You can really afford to fit it. So we'll see. I don't know about this one too much. And lastly, we have Highland Warlord. So this is a bad change. Highland Warlord really is a 6 version card. It gives you so much value throughout the course of the game. Yes, raids got over nerfed, but I think the card to fix was War of Clans, not Highland Warlord. Highland Warlord definitely deserves to be a 6. Kind of like I've always said with Slave Driver. This is a 6 version card. It gives you so much. So you play like 10 raids, which is pretty reasonable. This thing plays for 13 over the course of the game that does damage. That's a 6 version card for sure. And I think the War of Clans is the one that should have been reverted to help the raid deck. However, it's good that raid's getting help. I just don't think this is the way to do it. Next up, let's do the last set of buffs, because these are the fun ones. We have Detlef. When I mentioned vampires, saying something about Regis Reborn, I was trying not to lead too much into this. This one I really like. I really like the idea of using the Blood Moon as a vampire. I don't think this makes anything new. Does it help anything? Yeah, it helps a lot of vampire stuff. Definitely playing vampires soon. So I think we'll actually put this one in. Is this really top tier? Or is this just good? No, it's top tier. I like it. I like it that much. We'll put it in top tier. It really helps a bunch of different vampire decks. Same thing as Regis, but unlike Regis, this card's a little more setup. It helps out the decks that focus more on bleeding, like the ones that have more of the vampires, less neutral cards. You can reset the Necrots more, because you get much easier with more bleeding cards to set up his damage for the finisher. So it actually does help out the non-neutral decks a bit more there, which I like, and the ones that are more focused on the bleeding. So I ranks higher than Regis Reborn. And Regis Reborn at 12, like compare Regis Reborn to the other 12 Provision finishers. It's usually worth about 20 points. That's a lot. I guess the other 12 Provision finishers are what, like Sathanas' Blaze is an 11. It's usually a little smaller. Maybe this does warrant its 1. We might move this up to good, but I definitely like this one a lot more. Okay, we'll put it in good. We're just being biased. It's a Provision, though. This is more useful because it makes him live better to use his ability. I'll leave this in. I'll put it in. We'll move it up to good. We're just being a little biased here against the red fruit vampires, to be honest. Next up, let's do Yonkou Wait. I do not like this change. Yonkou Wait is like the Nilfgaard card. You put in all your Nilfgaard decks, along with all the tactics. Put all the tactics in the bottom, so never draw them, and it's just not interesting. It's really good. It's the best setup / thinning / tutor card in the entire game, and it also plays for now 7 tempo instead of 6. I don't like this. I also don't like it because it's a reversion, and yeah, I just don't like it. Nilfgaard got some help other places. Coup, for example, and Slave got buffed, so I don't really think it needed to also have Yon buffed, because it like buffs the entire faction, but it is only 1 power, so I don't hate it, I just don't like it. By the way, this isn't saying that I'm always right. I can definitely be wrong about these changes, which has happened. We got to Zoltan. I like Zoltan. Is this a top tier along with Monroe? Where's Monroe? Put this one by Monroe. I don't know if this is top tier. It's a 1 power on a carryover. 1 power on a carryover. Doesn't really. Yeah, we'll leave him here. I think it's definitely a good change. I'm torn between good and top tier for this one. It's a really nice change. Get more resilience on the dwarves. This is one that people cut most frequently of the Zoltans, I think. And it's got more resilience. It synergizes with the dwarves because it gives you the flail plays for 9 on deploy because of the adjacent 2 dwarves. So it's probably just a good change. Procession of Penance, same type of deal. Helps Firesworn. It's not too big a deal, but the fact that Procession of Penance is this big setup where you have to have more guys out. If you had 6 guys out, it played for 12. Now, it got a 1 power buff, but that's not as big a deal as other 1 power buffs because it means you need an extra Firesworn Zealot out to not damage him, or token out to not damage himself by another point. So I think this is perfectly fair and hopefully a good way to help Firesworn. Carrack Frigate, I love this change. For now, at least, we'll see. But I really want to make some crew decks, more siege-based decks, the Swarmy decks, the Queen Meve decks, the Northern Realms decks that really rely on having more units, and the only really viable card for that is Carrack Frigate, and it was just too weak to base the deck around. Sure, you could do it with like PFIs and stuff and playing Germain, but that's not really my favorite. So I like this. I hope this makes new decks in Northern Realms. Northern Realms has a little bit of variety, but I really hope this helps out and makes some more interesting Swarmy decks, especially with Queen Meve, because she's very interesting. All right, dropping Nausicaa into the proper tier list where it always goes. Next up, we have Harpy Egg. This is actually another one I really like. Monsters, Deathwish in particular, doesn't really get many changes ever, but this is a card that doesn't usually make it to Deathwish, and it's like the original Deathwish card, so I wish it would be viable. Now plays for 10 if you get the ability, same as Rot Fiend. You ever see Rot Fiend? Although I kind of like Rot Fiend, to be honest. So I just like this change. I think it's good. On Crate Raiders is up next. I'm neutral on this. I played this card occasionally. Like usually it goes in like a 1 of a deck with you 5 versions left. You throw in this guy as an option. But now I think he's a little better. In round 3 by himself, he now plays for 9 for 5, which is probably about where it should be. So I'm neutral. I thought it was okay before. Sometimes I played it. I guess this makes it probably a bit better, especially if you're not playing King Bran. Playing King Bran, it's really nice. Maybe this is worth being good, but I'm kind of neutral on it. I don't feel too strong about it. On Slave Trader, this is a good change. This is the only Wild Hunt card that didn't make it into the Wild Hunt decks, where it definitely should have been an option. Like, if you're making a deck with Tyrannolia and you can fit, you want to put one of each of the Wild Hunt cards in just to well, I can't say the word, to buff the Tyrannolia, not being able to include this guy, like not even being a consideration, is pretty sad. So I'm glad he got that buff. And his ability is really interactable between both players, which makes it a lot more interesting. Radovid's Royal Guards are next. I think this is another good one. This card didn't see play. Even actually, Carrick Marine doesn't see play either, funnily enough. But as a setup card, the fact that gives armor, gives the 2 points. If it only gave the 2 points before, which is pretty common, it's got pinged. It was a 5 for 4, which is pretty bad. And now it's a 6 for 4 with the option to give the armor, and the armor making it 8 if the armor absorbs damage. Seems a lot more fair to me. Now onto some power decrease nerfs. We've got Simloss. I don't really care one way or the other. Simloss is super strong. Super strong ability. You give me 1 power for it. The only problem I have with this is that Scoia'tael didn't really get... I guess Dwarves got buffs. Harmony got buffs. Yeah, we'll say this is probably good for Simloss. He has a really strong ability. This one I have no idea about. Why are we nerfing Ihwaraquax again? Does one of the big community streamers just hate this card or something? I don't see anyone use this. It's played in like meme decks and like mill decks and weird stuff, which I think is kind of fun sometimes, but those decks aren't really that strong. So I don't know what's up with this. I don't like it. Ixura, another bad one. Actually, yeah, Ixura is a bad one. Why are we nerfing Ixura? Is it because she says Vice on her? Why isn't Akaranchi a deckhand on here in that case? But I guess this is another nerf device. So we got what? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 provisions. A power nerf here. Ixura is not... Like, she has a strong ability, but Vice 8 is really expensive. And, like, tokens can block it. I mean, unless you're playing exactly with Freak Show, it's kind of hard to get really big guys with her, unless the opponent's playing, like, Ogroids or something. So, I don't really know about this one. This one seems like we've nerfed Syndicate enough, especially Vice, that this doesn't make sense. Next up, we have Corrupted Flaminica. This one I actually think is good. Corrupted Flaminica, as a finisher, is one of the strongest finishers for one of the cheapest costs. I guess we're comparing her to something like Regis Reborn, for example. Right, she usually plays for 24, 26, and something like that. And at 8 provisions, that's pretty strong. But she's not as good in round 2. Actually, you know what? This is a... Yeah, I almost voted for her, but she's definitely making me glad we put Regis Reborn up to here. But this is insane. Like, she plays for so much value that I kind of agree with this. Not kind of, I do agree with this. Compared to like Herald Gorge, which is capped at 12. Obviously, Herald Gorge's a 3 for 7 that goes up to 15. She's now a 3 for 8 that can go up to like 25, 26. 26 usually because it's even numbers. 24, 26 usually what you see. I was just averaging it. Next up, we have Operator. This is a good change. Operator gives you extra copies of bronzes. Usually it's really expensive, very powerful engines, and I don't think he should play for quite as much tempo when he's doing that. This is my opinion. Next up, we have Uldaric. This just gives him his Berserk ability without any setup, because it's Berserk 7, which says something's power equal to his own. You don't really want to do that most of the time at 7 anyway. You usually want to damage him down further. So, I just dropped him so we could talk about him. We'll put him up in the good. I like this. I'm not the biggest fan of changing Berserk abilities to just go off right away because it makes them like a deploy, which isn't that interesting. However, I'm kind of okay with this. We'll try it out. But yeah, I kind of like the Berserks being Berserks, but his, you don't see him. Never really has any considerations. Even with this, it just makes it a little easier to damage him down, because he's unlike, say, like a Dire Bear, where if you nerf Dire Bear's power, its ability is just always online, for example. For him, you still want to damage him down further, right? So I'm okay with this. And then we have another good one in Dwimviandra. Dwimviandra just plays for too much, too consistently. Her ability is really the focus of her, but you just play her, and like, what's the minimum that you ever see? It's usually Minute Mushy Truffle. She's usually just not unconditional, because you have to have 3 units, but that's not hard. Usually she's just 10 for 5 on a carryover. She can lose a power for that. She plays for too much on the tempo. She should really be focused around that ability and using it, setting up. I think she played for too much at the same time. Next up, we have Blue Stripes Commandos. This is really stupid. Blue Stripes Commandos getting buffed to make the deck viable. It's 5 for 5. You want to nerf the deck, nerf the other cards around it. We nerfed Dwimviandra for the garrisons. We nerfed King Foltest for the setup. but now just Blue Stripes is undone, so those decks are just all worse than before. Nerf teleportation for the Blue Stripes Scouts. Decks are just worse than they used to be now, which is really dumb. So, good job. And then we have another one, Bare Knuckle Brawler. Alright, now look at this. Bare Knuckle Brawler can be annoying to deal with, but it spends coins at 1-for-1, which is not usually optimal for Syndicate. The only time this really shines is in something like Bounty, where they actually have the coins and the bounties get value from it. I think this thing should be a 5-for-5, and it's been changed and changed back and so much that I think this is just silly. Yeah, we'll drop it down. It's been changed like 4 or 5 times, hasn't it? I'm probably gonna hate this. That's enough changes. These two are pretty close. And lastly, we have D-Moon Longship. I really like this change, but I don't think it quite makes it in top tier. Yeah, I don't think it quite makes it in top tier because I don't think it's super viable, but I think it's more of a choice. Like, this thing losing power makes it easier to kill, makes it easier to get its ability off, which is really nice because it's kind of hard to do in dedicated onslaught decks. You're getting so much armor on it, so if it's less power, hopefully I would like to see it being some kind of mix between self-wound and pirates. So that is that one. And that is the tier list. So what do we think here? So mostly a lot of good changes once again. The good changes tend to be the buffs in my opinion because people aren't reverting stuff. But yeah, I like some good changes here. Some fun decks we'll be playing. Dwarves for sure. I wonder if we can put this in Dwarves. I don't think it'll fit. But yeah, we'll be playing Dwarves. We'll be playing some Vampires. What else do we want to do here? Make a Yalmar deck. This is in a good spot now. Make one of these decks. And then, yeah, so overall, a lot of good changes. Also, much higher category of bad changes than usual. Like, this is way more than normal. Usually I play like 1 or 2 here. But this time, maybe we're mixing them up. Maybe I'd normally put this in this. And maybe I'll do this. Let's probably do this normally. This has had like 4 changes too, actually, hasn't it? It's been 5, 6, 5, back to 6. This is its 4th change also. No, that's doing that. If it's got 4 changes, it deserves down here. This has gotten what? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 2, 2. Okay, yeah, I think I like this better. I should just make a, like, if it's been changed 4 more times for this one, because I think these are all changed at least 4 times, which I do not like these changes. So we're just going to hate the tier. I hate these. Right, because this was 8, 7, 6, 7. That's 4. 8, 7, 6, 7. Okay, you're still up here. That's the 3 changes. I don't hate that one that much. Now this we're happy with this now. So overall, a lot of good changes, some bad changes. The I hate this tier is really getting bigger. I really hate these changes. I should have just tossed them here to begin with, but I was trying to be conservative and not throw too much down there. But let me know what you guys think. Do you have any similar opinions, different opinions? Love to hear them. And we'll see you next time when we start actually playing on the new patch. That'll be it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more. And you can check out some more videos over here. And thanks for watching.